Imagine uncovering a truth that had been buried for generations. Sometimes the Earth refuses to keep secrets forever, and when these long-hidden revelations finally surface, they can shake us to our core. From frozen screams locked in time to unmarked graves hiding thousands of children, these discoveries didn't just rewrite history. They exposed humanity's darkest chapters, moments that time tried to erase but memory refuses to forget. For decades, these stories lay dormant beneath desert sands, locked inside forgotten tombs, trapped in Arctic ice, and hidden in plain sight. The discoveries came slowly, piece by piece, revelation by revelation. Each unearthed secret forced investigators to confront uncomfortable truths about the past and question what else might still be waiting to be found. In 1935, archaeologists working near Luxor in Egypt made an unsettling discovery beneath the tomb of a high-ranking official. Inside a wooden coffin lay the mummified remains of a woman, her mouth frozen wide open in what appeared to be an eternal scream. For nearly 90 years, she remained an enigma, locked in her terrifying expression. The mummy, adorned with a black wig and scarab rings of silver and gold, seemed to tell a story of her final moments, but investigators could only speculate about what had caused such a haunting death mask. In 2024, researchers finally used advanced scanning technology to peer inside her preserved body. What they discovered suggested the woman died screaming in genuine agony approximately 3,500 years ago. Her muscles had contracted in a rare phenomenon called cadaveric spasm, freezing her expression of terror at the exact moment of death. Despite the horrific expression, embalmers had treated her body with expensive imported materials, including frankincense and juniper, indicating she was a person of high status. Yet they had left her internal organs intact and her mouth frozen open, suggesting they either couldn't or wouldn't close it. The cause of her agonizing death remains unknown, but her scream echoes across millennia as a chilling reminder that some suffering transcends time itself. The desert of southern Peru holds one of archaeology's most enduring mysteries. For centuries, massive drawings etched into the earth went largely unnoticed, except by local inhabitants who knew the terrain intimately. The designs, created by ancient peoples between 200 BC and 500 AD, covered hundreds of square kilometers, but remained virtually invisible to anyone standing on the ground. Only from high above could observers appreciate their true scale and intricacy. In 1927, Peruvian archaeologist Toribio Mejia Zespi spotted them while hiking through foothills, but it wasn't until aviation became commonplace that the full extent of these geoglyphs, known as the Nazca Lines, became clear. For nearly a century, researchers discovered approximately 430 of these figurative drawings depicting animals, plants, and geometric shapes stretching up to 1,200 feet long. Then, in 2024, artificial intelligence helped uncover 303 previously unknown geoglyphs in just 6 months, nearly doubling the known total. The newly discovered designs included depictions of decapitated heads, llamas, and even a 72-foot-long orca holding a knife. These smaller relief-type glyphs had eroded over time and were almost impossible to detect without technological assistance. The discoveries revealed two distinct categories of geoglyphs with different purposes: line-type drawings associated with rituals and ceremonies, and relief-type figures meant to be seen by people walking ancient footpaths. Researchers estimate another 250 geoglyphs remain hidden in the desert, waiting for technology to reveal them. Despite decades of study, the complete purpose of these massive artworks remains uncertain, though most experts believe they held spiritual and ritualistic significance for the Nazca culture. In 1845, a British naval expedition departed England with 2 reinforced ships and a crew of 129 men. Their mission was to chart the Northwest Passage, the long-sought waterway through the Canadian Arctic connecting the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. The expedition, led by experienced polar explorer Sir John Franklin, vanished completely after being spotted entering the passage that summer. For over a decade, rescue missions searched fruitlessly for any trace of the lost expedition. Then, in 1854, explorer John Ray encountered Inuit people who described finding the bodies of approximately 40 white men near the mouth of the Back River. The Inuit also reported something that shocked Victorian England to its core, evidence that the dying sailors had resorted to cannibalism. British society initially refused to believe such allegations about their heroic explorers. The discovery of bones in the 1980s and 90s confirmed the horrifying truth. Nearly 400 bones recovered from King William Island showed cut marks consistent with deliberate removal of flesh. In 2024, DNA analysis finally identified some of the remains, including Captain James Fitzjames, whose jawbone bore unmistakable evidence of cannibalism. The discoveries painted a picture of desperate men succumbing to starvation, hypothermia, and scurvy after their ships became trapped in ice. In their final weeks, they abandoned their provisions and attempted to walk to safety. None survived the journey. The evidence suggests they cracked open bones to extract marrow and likely boiled skeletal remains in a last desperate attempt to sustain life. The Franklin expedition ended not in glory, but in the most extreme degradation, with officers and common sailors alike reduced to the unthinkable in their final moments. In 2014, Irish historian Catherine Corliss published research that would expose one of Ireland's darkest secrets. Working from her home in Tuam, County Galway, she had spent years investigating the deaths of children at a local Catholic institution for unmarried mothers. The Bon Secours Mother and Baby Home, run by nuns from 1925 to 1961, housed thousands of unwed mothers and their children during an era when Irish society harshly stigmatized births outside marriage. Corliss discovered death certificates for 796 infants and children who had died at the home, yet she could only find a burial record for one child. The revelation sparked international outrage and led to a government investigation. In 2017, test excavations confirmed Corliss's worst fears. A mass grave containing the remains of babies and toddlers had been discovered in a former sewage tank on the property. The children, ranging in age from 35 fetal weeks to 2 to 3 years old, had been buried in unmarked graves and essentially erased from history. The mortality rate at the home was staggering, equivalent to infant death rates from the 1700s. Many children died from malnutrition and preventable diseases in conditions one inspector described as horrific, with emaciated infants covered in sores and suffering from bloated stomachs. In July 2025, nearly a decade after the discovery, excavation finally began to recover and identify the remains. The work is expected to take at least 2 years. The discovery forced Ireland to confront its treatment of unmarried mothers and their children throughout much of the 20th century. Similar institutions across Ireland housed over 56,000 unmarried women and 57,000 children, with a mortality rate of approximately 15%. The Bon Secours sisters eventually issued an apology, acknowledging they had failed to uphold basic human dignity. For Catherine Corliss, who faced ridicule and opposition throughout her investigation, the excavation represents vindication and justice for the forgotten children, whose existence was systematically denied. In 1987, researchers exploring a cave in the Atapuerca Mountains of Spain made a discovery that would rewrite our understanding of ancient violence. Inside the cave, they found skeletal remains of at least 28 individuals dating back approximately 430,000 years. For years, scientists painstakingly examined and pieced together the fragments. One skull in particular revealed something chilling: 2 distinct head wounds inflicted by a blunt object such as a spear or stone axe. The injuries occurred around the time of death, making this the oldest known murder in human history. The victim had been struck repeatedly, suggesting intentional violence rather than an accident. The discovery of this ancient homicide, committed hundreds of thousands of years before modern civilization, demonstrated that murder is not a recent human invention. Violence and killing have been part of the human experience since our earliest ancestors. The cave, known as the Pit of Bones, contained a jumble of skeletal remains that researchers believe accumulated over time. The presence of deliberate violence among such ancient remains suggests that conflict and possibly even ritualistic killing were established behaviors in early human societies. The identity of the victim remains unknown, lost to the vast expanse of time, but the evidence of their violent end survived intact. In the 1990s and 2000s, archaeologists across Poland and other Slavic countries began uncovering graves that seemed designed to keep the dead from rising. The burials, dating primarily from the medieval period, showed clear signs of anti-vampire precautions. Some bodies had been decapitated, with their heads placed between their feet or legs. Others were buried with heavy stones positioned on their necks and chests. In 2013, construction workers discovered graves near Gluis, where the deceased had sickles placed across their throats, positioned so that any attempt to rise would result in decapitation. One particularly striking find from 2022 showed a woman buried with a sickle over her pelvis and a padlock on her toe. These elaborate burial practices reflected genuine fear in medieval communities about the dead returning to life. Traditional Slavic cultures had cremated their dead for centuries, believing only fire could release the soul. But when Christianity spread through the region between the 7th and 9th centuries, cremation was replaced with burial. This change appears to have provoked anxiety about the dead remaining in their graves. The individuals buried with these precautions were likely victims of cholera epidemics, diseases that killed rapidly and unexpectedly. The swift deaths may have fueled superstitions that these people could return as vampires. The discoveries provide tangible evidence of the genuine terror that gripped medieval communities during disease outbreaks. Rather than simply legends, these vampire burials demonstrate how fear manifested in elaborate rituals designed to protect the living from perceived supernatural threats. The graves remained undisturbed for centuries until modern construction and archaeology revealed the desperate measures taken by ancestors who believed the dead might walk again. In 2016, archaeologists excavating in Faliro, a suburb of Athens, uncovered a mass grave containing at least 80 skeletons. The remains told a disturbing story of ancient execution. Each skeleton lay with hands bound in iron shackles. Many had their mouths frozen open, as if screaming. The young men appeared to have been in good health when they died, making their mass burial even more mysterious. Pottery found at the site helped date the burials to around 650 to 625 BC. Researchers believe these men may have been followers of Cylon, an Olympic champion who attempted to seize control of Athens in what became known as the Cylon Affair. After the coup failed, Cylon supporters fled to a temple on the Acropolis seeking sanctuary. Historical accounts suggest they were promised safe passage but were killed immediately after leaving the temple. The shackled skeletons support this narrative of betrayal and execution. The mass grave represents a moment of political violence from ancient Athens that was literally buried and forgotten for over 2,600 years. The discovery provides physical evidence for events previously known only through historical texts. The screaming expressions and iron restraints create a haunting image of these men's final moments, executed together and discarded in an unmarked pit that preserved their remains until modern excavators revealed their story. In the Belgian cave of Goyer, archaeologists made a disturbing discovery about our ancient relatives. Among animal bones and other artifacts, they found human remains showing unmistakable signs of butchering. The bones belonged to Neanderthals, who lived approximately 45,000 years ago. Cut marks on the bones matched those found on animal remains at the same site, indicating the human bodies had been processed in the same manner as hunted game. 4 adults and 1 child had been cannibalized, their bones broken open to extract marrow and their flesh removed with stone tools. The discovery raised difficult questions about what drove these Neanderthals to consume their own kind. Malnutrition could explain the behavior, but no definitive evidence supports this theory at the Goyer site. Some researchers suggest the practice may have held ritualistic or cultural significance rather than being purely for sustenance. The bones remained in the cave for tens of thousands of years, until modern excavations brought this ancient act of cannibalism to light. The discovery challenges romanticized notions of early human ancestors and reveals that behaviors we find abhorrent today occurred among our closest evolutionary relatives. Whether driven by desperation, ritual, or other motivations we can barely comprehend, these Neanderthals engaged in one of humanity's ultimate taboos. The evidence sits preserved in museums, a permanent reminder that survival and culture in the distant past operated under completely different rules than our modern world. In 2018, archaeologists working in northern Italy examined skeletal remains from a mass burial site dating to the 6th through 8th centuries. Among the bones, they made an extraordinary discovery: a middle-aged man whose arm had been amputated below the elbow and replaced with a knife. The prosthetic blade showed extensive signs of use. Examination revealed wear patterns on the man's teeth and an unusual bone ridge in his shoulder, both consistent with frequently tightening straps that held the knife in place using his mouth. Near the remains, researchers found decomposed leather material and a buckle, likely parts of the harness system. The man had clearly lived for years with this weapon prosthetic, adapting to his disability in a way that transformed him into something out of legend. Whether he was a warrior, a laborer, or something else entirely remains unknown. The discovery demonstrates remarkable medieval ingenuity in adapting to severe injury. Rather than becoming helpless after losing his hand, this individual found a way to remain functional and possibly formidable. The knife prosthetic remained attached to his skeleton for over a millennium, preserved in his grave until modern excavators revealed this glimpse of medieval life and adaptation. The find challenges assumptions about medieval medicine and disability, showing that people found creative solutions to physical limitations, even in supposedly dark ages. In 2001, excavation at a Bronze Age settlement in Scotland uncovered two skeletons that defied explanation. The remains, approximately 3,000 years old, belonged to a man and a woman who had been deliberately mummified. Chemical analysis revealed something even stranger. The skeletons were composites. The male skeleton included bones from at least 3 different individuals spanning a 600-year period. The female skeleton similarly combined remains from multiple people. Someone had carefully assembled these composite bodies and preserved them in peat bogs before finally burying them together. The purpose behind creating these Frankenstein-like mummies remains completely mysterious. The effort required to gather bones from different time periods, preserve them, and assemble them into complete skeletons suggests significant ritual or cultural importance. Yet no comparable discoveries have been made that might explain the practice. The composite mummies sat undisturbed for 3 millennia until archaeologists revealed their bizarre construction. The discovery raises more questions than answers about Bronze Age Scottish culture and belief systems. What motivated people to create these assembled bodies? Did the different components hold special significance? Were they meant to represent ancestors, or perhaps serve some protective function? Without similar finds or written records from that era, the true purpose of these composite mummies may remain forever unknowable. They stand as testament to how much we still don't understand about ancient peoples and their sometimes incomprehensible practices. These 10 discoveries share a common thread. They were lost to time, hidden from view, and forgotten by history. Some lay buried in the earth for thousands of years. Others were deliberately concealed, their truths too uncomfortable for those who knew them. When they finally surfaced, they forced us to confront realities we'd rather not face, about human nature, suffering, and the darkness that threads through our shared past. Each revelation reminds us that the ground beneath our feet may still hold secrets, that history is never truly settled, and that sometimes the most disturbing discoveries are the ones that show us who we really were, and perhaps who we still are.